So, you want to own your own home, but you're one of the over 80% of Americans with less than perfect credit. You don't have enough money saved for a down payment, or your debt-to-income ratios are so high that the only person who will lend you money is your mother, and she still wants a cosigner. I know that sounds funny, but these are just a few of the reasons why tens of millions of Americans are still renting, instead of owning their own home. And the worst part is, most of them have convinced themselves they will never be able to own a home, or they're waiting on a miracle, instead of doing anything about it. So, why should you do whatever it takes to own your own home? Well, I'm glad you asked, because here's the facts. According to a 2021 report provided by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, the average homeowner in the U.S. has a net worth of approximately $200,000, while the average renter only has a net worth of around $5,000. This statistic alone should have you wanting to buy a house immediately, so you can start building equity for yourself instead of your landlord. Think about it. Every rent payment you make pays for a house or building owned by someone else. They get to benefit from the cash flow, equity, and tax deductions. And what do you get? Exactly. You get a roof over your head for another month and nothing else to show for it. This is why MWR Financial created our Cashflow system, combined with our Keys to Home Ownership program. Imagine having everything you need to increase your cash flow and income, so you can increase your buying power and save the money you need for a down payment. Or, how about having a team of financial experts who will get your credit scores back into the best shape possible, while lowering your existing bills and your debt-to-income ratios, all at the same time? Sounds amazing, right? Well, it is, but that's not all, because our team of affordable housing experts will even help you locate and purchase your new home for you now, regardless of your past credit history or your current credit scores. Yeah, you heard me right. Our experts will help you determine how much of a home you can qualify for. They will assist you with locating the home that meets your needs, buy it for you, and allow you to rent to own or lease with the option to buy, while our cash flow experts help you get your finances back into the best position possible to qualify for conventional financing. And if conventional financing ends up not being an option for you, your affordable housing expert will owner finance the property for you. In other words, we can structure the option that works best for you, and becoming a homeowner no longer has to be just a dream. It can actually become a reality. With that said, if you're tired of building equity for someone else and you're ready to own your own home, get back to the person that shared this information with you, and let us help you get on the right path towards home ownership once and for all. Rockefeller, Carnegie, Morgan, Ford, Vanderbilt. These are all names you're probably familiar with, not just because of the wealth they created while they were living, but because of their ability to pass it on from one generation to the next. You see, their names will never be forgotten, because their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and so on will continue to benefit from their wealth with almost no chance of it ever going away, because it continues to grow. So, how did they do it? Trusts. That's right. By properly creating a series of trusts, they were able to virtually eliminate taxes and protect their assets, while being able to build, live, and leave a legacy, all at the same time. This is exactly why MWR has created our Trust My Assets program. Before now, trusts, the knowledge of how they work, and their benefits have typically been limited to just the wealthy elite. Why? Because most experts charge tens of thousands of dollars to structure them properly, eliminating the masses. Most wealthy families only pass this information on to other family members, and the average consumer typically doesn't have access to the experts needed to structure them properly. However, thanks to MWR, you now have access to all the trusts you'll need, experienced experts to structure them properly, and you'll now be able to enjoy the benefits at a price you can afford. In the words of Nelson Rockefeller, your goal should be to own nothing but control everything. Trust My Assets gives you the ability to do just that, providing the maximum amount of protection for your assets against creditor collections, lawsuits, judgments, liens, and a whole lot more. What you don't own can never be taken from you. And with Trust My Assets, your trusts will now own your assets, but you still have total control over all of them. But that's not all. Taxes are our biggest expense as Americans, and believe it or not, our tax system in the U.S. is completely voluntary. However, once you complete that first W-4 for your first job, you volunteered to participate, and the only way out is through trusts. This is a key benefit of being in business with MWR. Think about it. W-2 employees pay the highest taxes of 28 to 37%. We help them become business owners to reduce that tax liability down to 18 to 22%. We then help them become investors to reduce the tax on that income down to 10 to 15%. And last but not least, we help them establish trusts so they can shift their tax liability to their trust at a rate of 0 to 5%. Imagine making $100,000 per year, and instead of giving $20,000 to $30,000 or more to the IRS, you are able to only have to pay $5,000 or less. What would you do with that extra money year after year? These are just a few of the many ways Trust My Assets can benefit you and your family. However, one of the most important benefits is your ability to pass your legacy on from one generation to the next, without ever having to worry about your family dealing with probate or taxes on the assets you leave behind. If your ultimate goal in life is to leave an inheritance to your children's children, then Trust My Assets gives you everything you need to make it happen. So, what are you waiting for? Get back to the person that provided you with this information and find out how MWR can help you trust your assets today.
There on the economy, we should say all of this comes with a looming tax fight in Congress. The Democrats want to revamp the tax structure and get rid of some of the loopholes that the wealthy and corporations enjoy to pay less taxes. And it may surprise you to learn that one of the universally accepted richest guys in the world, Warren Buffett, feels he pays too little by percentage. This interesting campaign of his was unveiled in a recent conversation with Tom Brokaw, who's here with us in the studio with more on this. This is fascinating.
Brian, it is well known that Warren Buffett is a contrary billionaire. Unlike most of his fellow billionaires, he believes that they should be paying a higher tax rate. And to prove his point, he decided to compare what he pays as a tax rate with what the people who work for him pay. Is this what you had in mind when you were 17, Warren?
Well, in a very, very, very general way.
It is no secret that Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha and the world's third richest man, doesn't have a great deal in common with his fellow billionaires. Here you are hitting against Bob Gibson.
Right.
But amidst the sports memorabilia and the modest office that is the nerve center of his empire, Buffett sees a fundamental injustice that he says touches all Americans.
The taxation system has tilted toward the rich and away from the middle class in the last 10 years. It is dramatic, and I don't think it's appreciated. And I think it should be addressed.
You've gone very public with this.
Right.
You've talked about in your own office, for example, you pay a much lower tax rate. Buffett is particularly critical of the lower tax rates paid by hedge fund managers who reap millions of dollars from the investments made by others.
I do know that the hedge fund operators spent a record amount lobbying in recent months. They give money to the political campaigns, and who represents the cleaning lady?
The hedge fund operators and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and others have said it's going too far. In fact, these hedge fund operators have created enormous wealth for the little guy as well. Pension funds and other people who participate in those private equity partnerships.
Well, they say they work hard, and in the process of working hard, they make other people money, and that's true of a whole bunch of people in the world, but that doesn't entitle them to a preferential tax rate.
Now, Warren's taking care of you because he's worrying about your tax rate. You know? Even some of Buffett's own employees had no idea what kind of a rate they were paying for taxes until he told them. You know, at the end of this year, you're going to pay a higher tax rate percentage of your income than this guy will.
Yes. I have learned that since I started.
He'll have a little more left over than you will at the end of the year, probably.
It's not right.
So here's your first tax return.
Yeah, that was when I was 13.
Right.
I owed $7.
Buffett doesn't hold out much hope that Congress will pass his favorite idea, a progressive consumption tax. But that does not mean he's going to stop speaking out. After all, his employees now are counting on him.
If you could rewrite the rules, what would you do? I'd first ask Warren how he would rewrite them.
And to further prove his point, Buffett has challenged, he's offered $1 million to charity to any of the Forbes 400 richest people who can show that on average they pay a higher tax rate than their secretaries pay. But so far, Brian, he's had no takers.
Now, he believes he's paying too low a rate. Does that also mean, by extension, he feels he should pay more to the federal government?
He thinks that it's just an unjustifiable system because the payroll tax is the tax rate that most of the people pay on ordinary income. He gets the capital gains tax. He thinks a lot of that should be bumped up. And as for that charge that investors will stop working if they get taxed at a higher rate, he says he remembers when capital gains were 40%, people didn't go home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and say, I'm going to a movie. I've paid too much in taxes already. He doesn't think it'll have a big effect on the economy. Pretty controversial.
Yeah, it's a brave campaign, and he can afford to launch it. Tom Brokaw, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Nice to be here.
When Nightly News continues after one of our limited commercial interruptions this Monday evening, we'll take you where a former First Lady is in fact celebrating her election as president. Also, the growing popularity of obesity surgery, if you can believe it, for American teenagers. And later, the new corporate culture in this country where it seems like everybody is suddenly a vice president.
NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams. Brought to you tonight with limited commercial interruption by Detrol.